rope-a-dope. What are you doing? It was a rope-a-dope. And finally, Reverend Rice, he wore him down. He wore him down. He kept throwing them punches, and he kept throwing those punches. Yeah. And then Ali said, I got you now. And that's the same way we got to do the devil. Let him throw his punches until we can defeat him. Amen? Y'all remember when David went up against Goliath? This is a perfect example of a spiritual battle, because there was no way physically that David should have slain Goliath, was it? How did he do that? Goliath was over 9 feet tall. And David, the Bible tells us, was small in stature. Goliath had been known as a mighty warrior. He had large armor. He had big feet. He had a big beard. His stuff was big, okay? This was a big dude, huh? But David had a secret. David had a secret. He had God on his side. Amen. See, he didn't have to fight like a man. See? That's what we got to understand when we're dealing with the devil. You don't have to fight like a man. You got God on your side, huh? See, he didn't even need weapons of mass destruction to defeat the mighty Goliath, huh? He used a slingshot, and the Bible said 5 smooth stones. He couldn't even put on the armor that Saul was trying to give him. See, David realized that the battle was not his and his alone, but the battle was God's battle. And sometimes we have to understand, to do battle, it's not just our battle alone. We struggle against flesh and blood, but we should not. Our battle is a spiritual battle. So if we as believers want to learn how to fight and defeat the enemy, we need to do something ourselves. All right? I'm going somewhere with this, Reverend Rice. I'm going somewhere. Hold on. Let me fix it up just a little bit more. In order for us to get our full anointing from God, we need to get our personal lives in order. Because, see, we have our own personal spiritual battles, amen, that's going on within ourselves, amen. In order for us to be able to be all that we can be for God, there are some things that we have to deal with personally. You understand, Michael V? And when we get a grip on these things, we will be able to fight with God on our side, huh? It's called taking care of your home, taking care of your kitchen, taking care of whatever you got to take care of. That's personal. We got to make it personal. So the first thing we have to do battle with spiritually is our morals. See, our morals are impure. And the things that fall under this category is sexual behavior, immorality, lust, pornography, adultery, fornication. The list goes on. It's a disgusting list. And all of these spirits that we have to confront if we want to have a made-up mind to follow Jesus in any season. You know, I even look at the Olympics today and beach volleyball. Can they not put some clothes on? Come on, somebody. I'm a grown man. Put some clothes on them women out there. They don't have to wear that. See, this is the kind of stuff we're dealing with, y'all. Things that were wrong 20 years ago. They just seem okay now. Nobody even bats an eye like, what's that all about? Hallelujah. Put some clothes on. I'm sorry. I mean, see, these addictive behaviors that can have a foothold over our lives and keep us from making progress in our relationship with God. And the foothold turns into a stronghold. I know somebody's listening to me this evening. Y'all don't even have to play like you're not listening. I know you're listening, man. When we feel shameful and guilty about what we are doing behind closed doors, it will only hinder our relationship with God. See, it will keep us from being all that we can be for God. See, you know why? Because when you think of yourself as a sinner, once a sinner, always a sinner. You feel like there's no hope for you. So you just rather accept this behavior. You'd rather just accept this lifestyle than to change. Because see, when you change and start doing life with God, you're going to have to be accountable. You're going to have to be responsible and accountable. Amen. Just trying to tell you. So if we want to have a made-up mind to follow Jesus in any season, we've got to control these demonic spirits, if you will. Yeah. Because if we don't, the devil will continue to trick you. Huh? Yeah. Another spirit that we have to do battle with is bitterness. Yeah. Huh? Bitterness. Hebrews 12:15 says, be careful not to allow any bitter root to grow up and cause trouble to come to you that will defile many. Amen. See, y'all got to understand that when bitterness gets inside of you, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to start, it says defile, you'll defile many. That's how the devil works. These are some of the things that we have to do. See, when someone hurts you or disrespects you and you don't have forgiveness in your heart, it causes you to have this spirit of bitterness, right? In your heart. Donald Trump appears to have a spirit of bitterness, huh? And when you have bitterness in your heart, you begin to wage war in your mind. You start talking about building a wall to keep people out and stuff like that. You just have bitterness in your heart because you're always trying to pay somebody back. Stick to whatever your policies are. Stick to what you're all about. Don't make it personal. Don't have the spirit of bitterness. I just need to say that now. Y'all remember that now. Yeah. Remember the person that killed the 5 police officers in Dallas. Perhaps it was in retaliation of the many blacks killed by police officers. But you know what? That came from a bitter root that allowed him to play out his anger. It allowed him to play out towards the police. It gets deep inside of you. I got to pay you back, man. I don't have forgiveness in my heart. I'm going to pay you back. I'm going to build a wall. I'm going to say bad things about your wife and about your families. I'm not going to keep it real. See, we can't allow a bitter root to get a foothold in our lives and cause us to defile many with our actions. All right, now. See, we have to have a made-up mind if we want to follow Jesus in any season, So our morals and bitterness, and these are things that the enemy will put in our lives as obstacles that we have to defeat. Yes, sir. And if we want to have a made-up mind to follow Jesus, we have to overcome these areas. Amen. Thank you for listening. Amen. As in closing, the final spirit that we have to deal with is the spirit of comparison. It's the spirit of comparison. See, the spirit of wanting somebody else's blessings or comparing your blessings to someone else's blessing. See, this should not be, and will drive you crazy, trying to keep up with the Joneses, not Frank Jones, but you know the Jones, I'm just saying. You can't keep up with Frank. You can't keep up with Frank. In Romans 12:3 it says, do not think of yourself highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. Amen. In Romans 12:6 it goes on to say we have different gifts. We all have different gifts, right? According to the grace given each of us. You see, when we get into trouble, when we start trying to compare my blessings to your blessings. All right, now. I can't preach like Pastor Thomas. I can't preach like Reverend Nolan. I can't preach like you. I don't preach like Reverend Weeks. I can't preach like my man Sullivan all up in here. That's just the way I preach the way I preach. But guess what? We all have the same purpose and we all have the same goal, and that's to bring everybody to Christ. We preach revelation of Christ crucified. See, we will never realize the fulfillment of our own blessings when we compare what we have to what somebody else has had. See, that's why this principle made God's top 10 list, didn't it? Yes, sir. He says, thou shalt not covet. All right. It was his top 10. You got it. Hey, the word covet means desire passionately what belongs to somebody else. What's up with that? See, remember. So our morals, our spiritual battles that we have to deal with. Bitterness is a spiritual battle that we have to deal with. And there are others for some of us, temporal values, and our success gets in the way of our relationship with God. It says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all other things will be added unto you. So temporal values can get in our way as well. And comparisons. All of these are spirits that we have to deal with, because remember, the devil, he's a trickster. He's a trickster, so we have to be aware of his tricks and his schemes if we ever want to defeat him. Remember, God is looking for people that can stay the same in any season. God is looking for people today with a made-up mind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You see, once when we get a plan to defeat the enemy, once we develop some kind of strategy, after we learn how to fight and defeat the enemy, then we won't let him continue to trick us. He won't keep tricking us, because we're on. Say, I'm on to his schemes. See, I'm on to your schemes, devil. You see, a lot of times people don't change. We sit around and wait for people to change, and we try to use human logic. I've got a lot of people on the job, and I want them to change so bad. I go into work every day, and I'm like, oh, Lord, what am I going to run into today? You ever run into those kind of people? And then finally, this was one of them spirits, one of them little demons that I had to deal with. I said, God, finally, obviously, these people are not going to change, right? So change the way I feel. Come on, somebody. About the situation. Change the way I feel about them. Because they ain't going to change. I can't get them to change. And every day they're just frustrated, and I want to just strangle somebody. God, give me the strength to make it through whatever season that I'm in. See, you got to remember, no matter what season that you're in, I've had to endure some seasons. I had to deal with Linda and this aneurysm for 16 years, and then finally God took her. It was just a long season, right? And we all go through seasons. And then God gave me Terry, and we go down to Florida, and Terry has a stroke. And I throw my hands up, and I say, God, really? Really? Huh? I had my season. Somebody listen to me this evening. Do you ever feel like that? I already had my season. It's time for you to move on to somebody else's season. Because I had mine. I thought I did pretty doggone good, God.
Come on.
I'm just keeping it real. And God wants us to keep it real. But always remember, and I had to keep telling myself, trouble don't last. Always. I had to learn, y'all, that weeping may endure for a night. But I heard somebody say one time, joy. Somebody said joy. Joy. It cometh in the morning, my brothers and sisters. See, we got to understand that the devil, he don't want your stuff, right? He wants what? He wants you, and he wants your joy. He wants you to not be happy. He wants you to go fussing at work every day. He wants you to come in grumpy all the time. Huh? But when we have a made-up mind, and we develop some kind of rope-a-dope, y'all, some kind of strategy to stop letting the devil just do us any old kind of way. You know what? I heard someone say that eyes haven't seen. I heard somebody's ears haven't heard what God has in store for each and every one of you. All you got to do is have a made-up mind and decide to follow Jesus. I'm talking about for real. I'm not talking about playing around. As I try to wrap it up, can I talk to the people that are interested in knowing the difference between religion and having a